Picture this: a packed audience cheers as a huge person with muscles rippling beneath the bright lights lifts a brand new wedding band for everyone to see. Tyrus is the ring name of George Murdoch. Millions of people know him as the most powerful wrestler in the world and the loudest voice on your favorite cable panel. But last weekend, the focus changed from political discussions and championship belts to something much more personal. Tyrus got married. And his new wife is not who everybody thought she would be. Today, we tell the story of a whirlwind romance, a secret relationship, and a woman who is quite surprising and now has his last name. Tyrus's journey to this altar moment started in a little Texas town where George Murdoch grew up as the son of a minister. He learned two things as a child: how to have faith and how to be disciplined. His father's sermons from the pulpit taught him a strong work ethic, and his mother's soft hugs taught him empathy, which would later become a big part of his on-camera appeal. Murdoch was 6 feet 8 inches and 350 pounds, which made him much taller than his classmates. He kept his head down and worked on his strength by playing football and lifting weights in high school. College recruiters arrived looking for a football standout, but George had other plans. He wanted to be a performer and stand in front of people and get their attention. In 2009, he joined WWE's developmental division and became known as Brodus Clay. He made a name for himself as the Funkasaurus, an unstoppable dancing monster. Fans soon started singing along to his theme song and laughing at his bright clothes. But below all the joy, George was very competitive. When WWE Creative took him off the air, he got rid of the funk and came back as Tyrus in a different organization. He was a leaner, meaner version of himself with a steely gaze and a smashmouth technique that never stopped. He became a mainstay in Impact Wrestling, killing mid-carders with simple power moves that reminded old-school fans of tough guys. Then they turned to punditry. Tyrus carried the same kind of energy to Fox News shows, where he talked about political problems with a mix of humor and real anger. He quickly moved up the ranks, going from being a fill-in to a permanent panelist. His one-liners became viral on social media, and people wanted to see him more. Tyrus was arranging additional flights to Washington, D.C. by 2022. Then to events where people wrestle. But even with all this celebrity, he couldn't find true love in the bright lights. For years, people spoke about Tyrus's love life. Tabloids hinted at late-night meetings with co-workers, while video snippets showed him sipping coffee with co-hosts and laughing too long to be just business. But he protected his personal life like a championship belt, refusing to say whether or not he was in a relationship. He would flash that famous smile whenever the topic came up on the air, and he would make jokes about staying unmarried to keep his attention strong. A lot of admirers thought that Tyrus, the unstoppable force, was also unbeatable in love, never vanquished, never pinned. Then, on Valentine's Day, rumors started to spread on social media: Tyrus seen leaving a fancy hotel with a mystery woman. Fox News star wearing a gold band, coincidence? Finally, a video of the proposal surfaced online, showing Tyrus on one knee with rose petals all around him and the skyline sparkling behind him. The caption just said, "She said yes." Right once, people started to guess what it meant. Who could win over a man who had ruled two very public venues for 10 years? There were a lot of theories online. Was she also a journalist? A wrestler like you? Or someone who has nothing to do with him? Then, out of nowhere, the news came out: the bride is Ariana Tatum, a rising gospel singer who met George for the first time 2 years ago at a church fundraiser in Houston. This woman believed the same things he did, but she was on a completely different path. Tyrus showed off his muscles in the arena, while Ariana moved them with the power of her voice. Her first album went to the top of the gospel charts, and critics called her the next generation's Whitney Houston. But this diva kept her personal life very quiet, just like her groom. Their story of how they fell in love is like a best-selling book. George was asked to be the MC at the Nigerian American Gospel Awards, where they met during a breakout performance. As she walked on stage, she addressed him Brother George. He introduced her as "my inspiration, Ariana Tatum." They met off camera, went on a coffee date, and then had late-night video chats that lasted until beyond midnight. They became friends through sermons, fitness plans, and hopes of working together in the church. She liked how real he was on political shows, and he got strength from how open she was in heartbreaking songs. During the pandemic, they helped each other out. He would say morning affirmations, and she would record lullaby covers to keep him grounded. Both fan bases were shocked by the news of the engagement. People on wrestling sites couldn't believe it. Tyrus is getting married to a Grammy-nominated gospel star? I didn't see that coming. Gospel congregations were overjoyed. She's found a partner who respects her faith and supports her calling. A bridge formed between these two cultures, showing a couple with strong values and devotion to one another. Next, we'll go into more detail about the extravagant wedding events, from the church with special LED-lit stained glass projections of their life together to the guest list that read like a who's who of commentators and entertainers. We'll talk about how they mixed rap beats into church hymns during the reception and look at the beautiful jewelry line Ariana showed off. We'll also look at the social media tempest that followed their first dance, when Tyrus, dressed in full ring gear, tied his tie to his trunks and floated across the floor. This was a moment that showed the strength and grace of their marriage. The Grand Cathedral was nothing like any other sanctuary. Its high arches were lit up in soft lavender light, and custom LED stained glass projection showed George and Ariana's journey from their first meeting to their I do. As guests walked down the aisle, they passed panels of video montages of George winning championship belts, Ariana receiving gospel awards, and quiet moments of prayer together on a worn church pew. The couple stood in the middle of the room under a hand-carved oak canopy, surrounded by tall bouquets of white calla lilies and cascading orchids. The smell of fresh magnolias and sandalwood incense filled the air. A group of string musicians played a sweet version of Amazing Grace, and then Ariana's six-piece gospel choir came in. Their voices rose in harmony until the walls seemed to gleam with pure ecstasy. The guest list was like a constellation of famous people from pop culture and public life. WWE legends Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley stood next to Fox News co-workers Harris Faulkner and Jesse Waters. Gospel greats Kirk Franklin and Tamela Mann gave their blessings, along with pastors from Houston and Nashville. George Murdoch's father, who sat proudly in the front row, cheered and muttered when former President George W. Bush showed up unexpectedly. Wrestling enthusiasts begged for autographs, while religious groups prayed. At that moment, two cultures came together in a brilliant way, with magnificent pews packed tighter than any sold-out arena. After a pastor blessed them, George and Ariana exchanged vows that they had written themselves. His promise to defend your heart like I defend a title belt had many laugh and cry. Her commitment to stand by you in every ring life places us got a standing ovation. Then came the rings. George's band was a wide tungsten cuff with black diamonds set in it, which was like his hallmark power moves. Ariana's engagement ring had a perfect pear-cut diamond in the middle and two emeralds on either side, which was her birthstone and in homage to George's Texas heritage. The jeweler, who had flown in from Antwerp, showed each heirloom quality rock to a group of people who gasped in awe. The emeralds sparkled like secret promises between them. The reception that came after was a great example of how to use contrast. 7 long banquet tables at one end of the space showed off Southern comfort food like smoked brisket, crawfish étoffée, and buttery cornbread muffins under bistro lamps that looked like lanterns. At the other end, futuristic chandeliers hung over elegant cocktail stations that served caviar-topped blinis and black truffle arancini. The dessert bar had a neon sign that said love, faith, and funk on it. There were gospel-inspired cupcakes and bass-heavy chocolate fountains there to break up the first-course motivational talks. The music playlist switched between gospel songs and rap-infused remixes, which showed the couple's two backgrounds. DJ Envy unleashed strong rhythms under Ariana's passionate renditions of Total Praise. Then, as guest rappers like Lecrae and T-Pain took turns with the gospel choir, the tempo picked up. When the clock struck midnight, the lights went down and everyone went quiet. George came out wearing a special tuxedo jacket with gold thread woven into it that spelled out Mr. Murdoch on the back. Ariana, dressed in a sleek white jumpsuit with pearl fringe, reached out her hand and led him to the dance floor. The first dance they had was not what they expected. George tied his tie to the belt loops of his fitted wrestling trunks. Then he spun Ariana around, combining his ring agility with her grace as a gospel singer. As they dipped and rose to a live mix of When I Fall in Love and Oh Happy Day, cameras flashed. Friends shouted, and others cried. It was a mix of a power move and a holy celebration, with laughter, faith, and flair sealing the deal. Photographers filmed every moment, from Bully Ray, Tyrus's best man and fellow wrestler, giving a toast about valor and war and devotion, to Ariana's sister singing an impromptu blessing in Mohawk to honor George's heritage. Under the hashtag Tyrus Tatum Tie the Knot, videos of the night went viral across the world, getting millions of views as fans marveled at how well sports showmanship, political elegance, and spiritual reverence came together. After cutting the cake, which was a huge black forest cake with edible gold leaf on top, the newlyweds went away for a private lullaby performance. Ariana sang in a cappella version of You Raise Me Up in a darkened alcove. Her voice bounced off the marble pillars while George watched with tears in his eyes. He hugged her after she was done, and the quiet speaker system transmitted their whispers to empty parts of the auditorium. As the clock struck 2, buses took people to an after-party at an old art warehouse in the city center that had been turned into a party space. The walls were covered in pop art murals, and there were lounge chairs and portable bars serving signature cocktails like The Sweetest Submission and Funk and Faith Fizz. Friends and family shared their favorite memories: Ariana's gospel crescendo, George's clip-tied trunks, the surprise Bush cameo, before dancing until dawn. By the time the sun came up, #Tyrus Tatum Tale was a hit on social media. Wedding trend experts predicted a rise in gemstone bans and faith-based events. Influencers called it the model for modern marriage, where theatrics meets sincerity, spectacle serves substance, and the unexpected coming together of worlds becomes the best way to celebrate love. The day after the wedding, George and Ariana went on a honeymoon that was both luxurious and meaningful. It was a small version of how their love balanced show and honesty. They took a first-class flight to Cabo San Lucas, where a private residence on a cliff with views of the Pacific Ocean was waiting for them. As the sun went down and the pastel skies turned blazing orange, the couple had a candlelit meal on a balcony covered in bougainvillea. Ariana's soothing giggle mixed with the sound of the waves. George raised a glass to new beginnings in the ring of life, and his voice was warm in the cool ocean breeze. That night, they got into the infinity pool under a blanket of stars and told each other stories of their childhood pranks and first heartbreaks. These were moments that cameras and audiences rarely saw, but they were important to the friendship they made. Their schedule mixed adventure with deep thought. In the mornings, they kayaked into secret sea caves. Ariana's delicate arms steered the kayak while George easily led them through difficult waters. In the afternoons, they went on tours of Baja's up-and-coming wine country, where they tasted Malbecs and roses and compared notes on what they liked and didn't like. They laughed when George said his palate was still a work in progress. In the evenings, they wrote songs in private, with Ariana strumming a borrowed guitar and George writing poetic lines about love's triumph and faith's anchor. By the end of the week, they had created 2 unique gospel country fusion songs together. They planned to release them on their first album together, which was the result of their common interests. In the meantime, paparazzi pictures of the pair walking hand in hand along the beach got out, letting everyone know about their honeymoon. Gossip sites had headlines like "Giant of the Ring goes soft on the beach," and faith-based blogs lauded Ariana for helping George find a deeper spiritual path. #Tyrus Tatum Takes Cabo was all over social media, getting more than 12 million views in only 24 hours. Fans picked apart every little thing: the monogram towels with their shared M, the personalized flip-flops with the wedding date on them, and the simple silver band that Ariana wore on her right hand, which stood for their shared devotion to community service. Even wrestling forums, where people usually talk about kayfabe and finishing moves, were full of memes congratulating George and wondering if his new hymn recordings would be played on his next panel session. When they got back home, they held 3 charitable activities to show how much they wanted to use their marriage for good. First, they co-hosted a benefit concert at Houston's Hobby Center called Love and Power. Ariana led her gospel choir in powerful versions of I Will Trust in the Lord, and George gave a keynote speech about mentorship and the importance of giving people second chances, both of which were based on their own stories of overcoming challenges. The money raised went to scholarships at Texas Southern University for students studying ministry and communications. Then they went to Detroit for a charity bowling competition that George came up with as a way to honor his late cousin's love of the game. Former Fox News co-workers and Impact Wrestling alumni were among the celebrity bowlers. The tournament earned money for urban youth facilities, which showed how much the couple cared about difficult neighborhoods. Their last event together that month was a surprise visit to a women's shelter in Atlanta. Ariana had secretly worked with local groups to set up gospel brunches and counseling sessions on how to get your voice back. George came with a truckload of exercise gear, such punching bags, free weights, and resistance bands. He set up a Fight Your Fears program that taught self-defense and gave motivational presentations. He was honest about his personal struggles with self-doubt and said that Ariana's encouragement helped him believe in himself again. Later, the shelter's director called the day transformative. She said that women who had been silently dealing with trauma found motivation in seeing a former champion wrestler lower his head in prayer and then freestyle rap about how strong they were. During all of this, the couple's daily lives gained a new rhythm. In the mornings, the family members who lived in 3 different time zones, George's parents in Texas, Ariana's siblings in Chicago, and mutual acquaintances in Ghana, where Ariana had grown up before relocating to the US, would pray together on Zoom. They took turns reading their lists of things they were thankful for to ground themselves before the craziness of public life started up again. After that, they worked out together. George taught Ariana how to lift weights, and she taught him yoga postures that helped with his long-term shoulder pain. Breakfasts were protein smoothies mixed with fresh fruit and chia seeds to respect Ariana's experience in holistic nutrition. When Tyrus came back to Fox News on Monday morning, the mood had changed. He didn't come into the studio as a lone warrior, he came in as a husband with a common goal. The panelists taunted him in a friendly way, saying, "How's the honeymoon, champ?" He smiled and said, "Never felt stronger." Later that afternoon, Ariana joined him for an exclusive interview on the network's lifestyle section, where they talked about marriage as both a covenant and a collaborative craft. The piece got the greatest demographic ratings of the hour, showing that people wanted to see this real look at their marriage. Impact Wrestling added a celebratory sequence to a forthcoming pay-per-view. It included clips of George's wedding highlights matched to Ariana's choir voice. Before the championship match, the vignette aired, which led to shouts of Mr. and Mrs. Tyrus, with tickets selling out in a matter of hours. Some people wondered if Tyrus might surprise everyone by showing up in the ring to celebrate his bride. This led to speculation of a possible tag team segment in which Ariana might perform live entrance music, which would be a first in wrestling history. The pair stayed true to their promise to keep their marriage private through everything. They agreed that the public could celebrate their marriage, but that sometimes, like late-night prayers and spontaneous laughter over internal jokes, would always be special. George Murdoch and Ariana Tatum showed what a modern marriage could be like by mixing public celebration with private sanctity. They honored both spectacle and spiritual depth. George and Ariana went back to work on Monday following their honeymoon, but something important had changed. They had started drawing up plans for cooperative projects that would bring their worlds even closer together behind the scenes. They came up with the idea for a project called Faith, Fights and Funk while talking on the phone late at night at their home studio, which was covered in ring posters and gold albums. The idea is to have a weekly streaming show that mixes Ariana's gospel performances, George's wrestling practices, and honest talks about marriage, faith, and never giving up. They thought about going to small-town gyms, church basements, and old wrestling rooms to tell stories of regular couples who found strength in being together. They wanted to make something that wasn't just religious or just athletic, but a mix of the two that showed both of them by portraying hardships and celebrations in equal measure. Within days after their first brand collaboration, it was gone. Titan Apparel, a big name in sportswear, came out with the Power and Grace line. It includes compression shirts with Ariana's favorite Bible phrases on them and wrestling tights with pearl embroidery around the edges. In the video for the product introduction, George did deadlifts while Ariana sat on a ledge and sang ad-libs of Stand By Me. Sales far exceeded expectations. Fans tweeted videos of them opening the co-branded hoodies, and churches posted pictures of youth group members wearing the Power and Grace snapbacks. Retail customers rushed to get more, and soon the range included yoga mats and fighting gloves with gospel choir graphics on them. This early accomplishment gave them the courage to look for more ways to work together. At the same time, people on social media started talking about it a lot. People on wrestling message boards were buzzing with rumors about whether Ariana will show up at the upcoming pay-per-view. People on religious forums argued about whether George's on-air commentary on political matters had earned additional moral authority when he married a gospel star. People who didn't like either side spoke out. Some religious leaders were worried about mixing worldly entertainment, like drink bars at nuptials and high-energy wrestling characters, with spiritual music in ministry. On the other hand, hardcore wrestling fans didn't like it when gospel remixes of entrance music and family prayers broke kayfabe. These critics said that the marriage was a clash of two worlds that couldn't be reconciled. George and Ariana didn't pay attention to the doubt, though. They had dealt with worse rumors when their love was just an internet murmur. Most reactions, on the other hand, were very positive. There was a 150% increase in searches for Tyrus' wife on streaming sites. This was because a mix of worship leaders, sports enthusiasts, and political junkies were all tuned in to see their chemistry. People and Essence magazines wrote feature articles about them, complimenting their sincerity in the way they broke down silos between different types of entertainment. Even late-night hosts called them the power duo that everyone wanted but didn't realize they needed. Within a few weeks, Faith, Fights and Funk got a development contract with a big streaming service, which included an order for 10 episodes. George and Ariana hired a production crew that includes former WWE camera operators and gospel stage directors. This brought together technical skills from both fields. As pre-production got going, the pair had to deal with fresh problems. Ariana was busy with her chart-topping record rollout and had to switch between studio sessions and site scouts for Faith, Fights and Funk. George had to balance daily rehearsals for Fox News, promotional videos for Impact Wrestling, and late-night writing sessions for the scripts for their show. To avoid burning out and to honor the sanctuary they had built on their honeymoon, they stuck to a rigid schedule. They didn't film or make media appearances on Sundays. Instead, they went to church, had a small potluck breakfast at home, and got ready for the week ahead. This holy Sabbath practice helped them set limits that they had trouble doing in past relationships, and it established the basis for the long-lasting nature of their marriage. Family life also started to grow. Ariana told everyone on social media that she was pregnant with their first child not long after they got back from Cabo. The announcement sparked a new surge of posts celebrating. Fans made hashtags like #BabyMurdoch and #Tyrus Jr. and sent gifs of congratulations and prayers. The announcement video, which was filmed in their backyard kitchen with the morning sun shining through, showed George holding Ariana's tummy while hens pecked at the patio. Viewers really connected with their real happiness, which wasn't chopped by the editor. The couple said they loved being in the public eye, but they wanted to protect their child from too much attention. They made a birth plan based on faith and affirmation, hired a group of midwives, and promised to keep the baby private for the first few months. But underneath the public face was a complicated network of logistical and emotional changes. Their shared calendar was full of press junkets, sponsorship shots, and pre-production meetings, so they had to rely on a growing support team. Ariana hired a full-time assistant to help her plan her music tour dates and Faith, Fights, and Funk shoots. When George went for panel appearances, he hired a personal trainer to help him stay in shape for the ring. On the weekends, they interviewed nannies and childcare consultants and worked out contracts that allowed for both privacy and hands-on involvement. Strategy meetings that went late into the night often went past midnight, with muttered prayers and glasses of decaf coffee in between. They knew that their marriage could either get stronger or fall apart under these stresses, so they decided to face each challenge together instead of alone. Their marriage opened up new financial opportunities. Joint ventures in fitness, fashion, and faith-based media attracted outside investors who wanted to take advantage of their appeal across genres. Venture capitalists suggested wellness retreats called Murdoch and Tatum Ministries, which would include boxing exercises, gospel meditation, and community service initiatives. Tech businesses wanted them to be brand ambassadors for everything from health tracking devices to educational apps that teach scripture through interactive stories. They carefully looked over each offer and turned down offers that seemed unfair or didn't fit with their core principles. They kept the integrity that first attracted people by only working on projects that respected both their beliefs and their craft. As Section 4 comes to a finish, it's clear where things are going. Tyrus and Ariana have turned a surprise marriage announcement into a union that is more than just a marriage. It goes beyond classifications and breaks the rules of what is expected. In the following portion, we'll talk about their next chapter, which will be about how they deal with public controversies, safeguard their growing family, and keep working on the delicate balance between love, duty, and showmanship in a world that wants real stories. There is no way for a relationship this public to avoid drama, and Section 5 shows how George and Ariana stayed strong through hard times without losing sight of each other or their essential ideals. When Tyrus made comments regarding immigration policy on Fox News earlier this year, detractors on social media jumped on him, saying he had compromised his gospel music wife's humanitarian values. Headlines said that Ariana was supporting her husband's position just because they were married. Instead of backing down, the pair conducted a virtual town hall together, which was streamed live on both of their channels. George started off humbly, admitting that he was passionate about what he was saying but making it clear that he never meant to downplay the problems that migrant families face. Ariana then talked about her personal experiences hosting dinners for refugee families in Houston. She stressed that her faith calls her to be both compassionate and honest in her conversations. Their honest talk went about an hour and a half over schedule, which is quite rare for cable news. People on social media went from being angry to respectful. People who saw said they both cared about nuance, not sound bites. A second incident arose when a gossip site posted blurry pictures of Ariana backstage at an Impact Wrestling pay-per-view. This sparked a dispute over whether she was using her fame to get attention. People are talking about Mrs. People might have talked about Tyrus as a stunt partner, but Ariana kept it short and sweet. She had discreetly gone to George's first live performance of the theme song he had written for Faith, Fights and Funk to support him, and no money changed hands. She shared behind-the-scenes videos of the production meeting, when she looked over camera angles and he checked mic levels. This showed how they worked together. Fans liked how open they were, and people who weren't fans saw a married couple starting a creative business instead of chasing tabloid gossip. Setting clear digital boundaries was important to keep their growing family safe. Their publicists set up a media-free zone surrounding their home IP addresses, and personal images suddenly had geofences that stopped them from being tagged with their location. Their first child, who was expected this summer, would only be shown in silhouette or voiceover on official channels. This is a trick that celebrity couples use to keep their kids safe from intrusive paparazzi. Comment sections were watched by social media managers, who quickly deleted abusive posts and made sure that community rules of respect were followed. George and Ariana published a blog post together that invited real questions but said that mean-spirited guesses would not be allowed. Within days, the amount of toxic comments in comment streams went down by more than 60%. They worked on their week's choreography behind the scenes to keep both demand and sanity at home. George's news panels and Ariana's recording sessions were on Mondays and Tuesdays, and Wednesdays were marriage evenings, which were unplugged dinners with soft lighting and no phones. Thursdays and Fridays were project days, where they worked on Sell Faith, Fights and Funk production meetings or Titan apparel design sessions. They set aside Saturdays for family health. They did yoga and wrestling-style fitness routines, then spiritual study, and finally a cookery class where they tried out power and grace recipes. Sundays were still holy, church services, lunch with the family, and a Zoom prayer circle with old friends and distant relatives. This structured regimen was the framework that let their high-energy activities thrive without burning out. Taking care of mental health became a joint goal. George kept attending his long-standing sports psychologist, who was now part of a couples program. He talked about the performance anxiety he felt when Ariana joined him in the public eye. She met with her spiritual counselor every 2 weeks to talk about her own inner struggles as she tried to match her desire to succeed in her work with her motherly instincts. Every 3 months, they went to marriage retreats that were meant for couples who wanted to live by their beliefs. Their therapists applauded them for seeing therapy as a way to keep themselves healthy instead of as a last resort. This is the same attitude they promote on their streams to help do rid of the stigma around counseling in both sports and church groups. Working together was also necessary for financial planning. Their joint endeavors brought in a lot of money, such streaming rights for Faith, Fights and Funk, royalties from clothing sales, and speaking fees. But they had to be careful not to let their money change their principles. They recruited a financial advisor that focused on ministries and media families and was based on ideals. They started having quarterly finance and faith meetings, where they talked about their donation goals, 10% of net proceeds, how to divide up the scholarship fund, and how much money they thought they would make. They made their donations public by posting a breakdown of them in every fiscal report on Titan Apparel's website. This way, the revenues from Power and Grace went directly to community projects that were in line with their objective. Even with these rigorous rules, being spontaneous was still very important. Their relationship stayed strong thanks to private date evenings that included surprise drag queen singing sessions in their living room and trips to get ice cream on the spur of the moment. George planned a cake-in-bed breakfast for her 30th birthday, complete with gospel hymns sung by local church youngsters. The next morning, Ariana surprised him with a homemade wrestling belt that said "Champion of My Heart." These little, happy acts reminded them and everyone else watching that their marriage was built on simple, loving traditions, not on headlines and sponsorship agreements. Tyrus and Ariana had to find a way to balance love, duty, and showmanship through arguments, privacy concerns, mental health care, managing their money, and celebrating without planning. They turned possible scandals into chances to be real, showing that their relationship is more than just a show, it's a real promise based on shared faith, respect, and hard work. Their first anniversary started with a quiet sunrise service for close family and a few friends, not a big event. George Murdoch, who is still 6 feet 8 inches tall, stood on the balcony of their Houston house and held Ariana's hand while her choir sang "Great is Thy Faithfulness" under a canopy of jasmine vines. The moment summed up what they had achieved thus far, a mix of show and safety, strength and weakness, and love that grew on shared values as much as shared news. In the weeks that followed, Season 1 of Faith, Fights and Funk got great reviews. People watched episodes about community gyms in Appalachia, urban ministry outreach programs in Detroit, and wrestling rooms in Kansas City. Each episode had real interviews with regular couples, along with Ariana's gospel harmonies and George's powerlift tutorials. The last episode, which was taped at their own church fundraiser, ended with Ariana teaching Tyrus how to belt a high note while he taught her a basic suplex. This image became the show's trademark, learning each other's disciplines to bring people together. At the same time, the Titan Apparel Power and Grace line grew into markets throughout the world. They set up pop-up shops in Shoreditch, London, and Surrey Hills, Sydney, where fans lined up for limited edition snapbacks and cross-branded gym towels with their wedding dates sewn on them. George organized unplanned strength challenges at each stop, with the goal of raising money for charity, and Ariana delivered bedtime prayers in pop-up prayer rooms. The money went to buying sleeping mats for homeless shelters and music therapy programs for kids in hospitals, which showed that they were serious about their promise that every dollar gained had a purpose beyond making money. At home, their family life grew in unexpected ways. Their daughter was born on a Tuesday in late July and weighed 8 pounds, 1 ounce. Ariana posted the first pictures on social media. They weren't spectacular portraits, they were candid shots of George holding the baby in his arms while Ariana's cheek rested on his chest, with dawnlight coming through the curtains. They called her Murdoch Jr., which honored both her family and his. The pair promised to raise her in prayer circles, wrestling courses on the weekends with mats that were the right size for kids, and gospel choir rehearsals. This would be an upbringing that would teach her both grit and grace. Fans and users of Patreon came together to sponsor fresh behind-the-scenes material. For a monthly charge, committed viewers got to see private vlogs like George showing Murdoch Jr. her first weight set, Ariana teaching lullaby harmonies, and sometimes even real fights about bedtime routines, which were always followed by on-camera apologies and reconciliations. Fans became more loyal because of the openness. They felt like honorary godparents who cared about the couple's authentic and intimate moments. Metrics indicated that these personal videos got more interaction than their mainstream programs, showing that genuineness can beat even the most flashy production. As they started making the second season of Faith, Fights and Funk, they came up with Couples Courage Grants. These are small amounts of money given to couples who send in accounts of how they worked through tough times together. People who got grants included former military couples who were mending trust through mixed martial arts training and immigrant spouses who were starting combined food truck ministries. George and Ariana would phone each award recipient during production breaks to mentor them, which created connections that went beyond the screen. The project showed that they believed that influence went beyond entertainment to real empowerment. Invitations to speak doubled. They gave speeches at business conferences on leading with love, at pastoral retreats on marriage's ministry, and at athletic conventions on faith in the face of failure. Their main talks included multimedia clips, Ariana's live vocals recorded over Tyrus's highlight reels, followed by interactive Q&A sessions. People stood up and cried as they gave testimonials. Event planners praised their ability to bring together people from different backgrounds, such as evangelicals and progressives, sports fans and gospel choirs, all of whom found common ground in the Murdoch's message. George and Ariana secretly made preparations for a family foundation in the future. The Murdoch-Tatum Fellowship for Resilient Partnerships would pay for study on how couples work together in high-stress jobs, such as sports, politics, and the performing arts. They thought of giving scholarships to therapists who work with people from different cultures and grants to faith-based couples retreats in areas that don't get enough of them. Their goal was to leave a legacy that would help other couples deal with the spotlight in the same way that they did, with a mix of humility and bravery. As this chapter comes to an end, Tyrus and Ariana are at a crossroads of love, work, and legacy. They used the power of spectacle to bring attention to content, combining the worlds of wrestling rings, newsrooms, and sanctuaries into one powerful story. Their marriage has become a model for how to thrive in the public eye, showing that love based on shared faith and respect can survive scandals, grow businesses, and raise babies. And as they look to the next horizon, whether it's a new streaming service, a global foundation, or just the delight of watching Murdoch Jr. take her first step, they are all still connected by that one truth: together, they are stronger, smarter, and more unstoppable than they have ever been alone.